Many years ago, I was in a fruit and vegetable shop, and they had all of these really brightly colored, those garish posters that they have on the wall, and they're kind of oversaturated and they have inspirational quotes on them. So I was in this fruit and vegetable shop, and I was looking at one of these posters with its inspirational quote, and it said, "Happiness is good health and a bad memory." And it made me laugh because I was quite miserable at the time, and I realized that I had bad health and a good memory, which, according to this quote, is the opposite of what you want. So, what is that referring to? Good health and a bad memory. Of course, what they're saying is, good physical health, but I guess good health in other ways as well: mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, and also a bad memory. And of course, what they mean is somebody who's letting go of the past. Um, that concept of presence. So at that point in time, I was yet to discover Eckhart Tolle's books and The Power of Now and his other books. So if you searched this video up and you were looking for something called How to Be at Peace, and you genuinely are looking for inner peace, one of the first things you should do right now is pause this video and go and buy The Power of Now. I'll put a link in the description just to save you a bit of time, but that book I think is indispensable for all the things it teaches you about how to be at peace. So the modern culture is quite anti-peace. It's like it's designed to destroy your inner peace in every way imaginable. Modern culture is a pro-stress culture. It's an anti-peace culture. It's hustle culture. It's push, push, push. It's atheistic. It's I don't believe in God, I believe in myself. That kind of attitude. Yeah, you're going to run yourself into the ground. And once you've run yourself into the ground, you're going to take yourself all the way to the pits of hell if you're not careful. So if you have searched for this, it means you want peace. It means you want peace and you don't want stress and you don't want drama. You don't want all the suffering that is the default in everyday life these days. So I'm going to go through as many things as I can remember off the top of my head. I do have some notes in front of me that I'll probably look at as well. I'm sure I'm going to miss things out, so I guess that just leaves material for future videos as well. But yeah, I think this one's going to be a long one, so grab yourself a cup of tea or a coffee, or just listen along as a podcast in the background. And yeah, we're going to go through a whole bunch of things. The present moment is, of course, one of the most important things if you want to be at peace. And I know what a lot of people say. A lot of people say, oh, I can't be present because I have a lot of inner turmoil. So what people are doing, if you've got into bad habits, what you're doing is you're trying to cover up your inner, whatever the opposite of peace is, your inner unpeace, your inner lack of stillness, and you're trying to cover it up with all manner of things, maybe guided meditations, maybe watching TV. If it's really bad, you might find yourself doing things like listening to loud music to try and block it out. I've never seen a healthy person or a person in a healthy state listen to loud heavy metal music, that kind of thing. It's always people who've got a lot of inner turmoil and they're trying to block it out. And you'll never be drawn to that stuff unless you've got a lot of heavy stuff going on inside of you. What Eckhart Tolle says about inner negative emotions and energy is they are there because you have spent a lot of time not observing them, not looking at them. It's a bit like when you finally get round to cleaning behind the sofa and there's all kinds of dust and dirt and dust bunnies and hair, and it's an unpleasant experience cleaning it up. But once you have cleaned it up, it's gone. And then you take a deep breath and you say, I'm never going to let that build up again. Don't you? You say that every time. You say, you know what? I'm going to clean behind the sofa regularly. I'm going to clean underneath all the furniture regularly so that all that horrible stuff doesn't build up. Well, the same thing is true inside of you. So if you don't observe and monitor what is going on inside of you, then all kinds of horrible, horrible stuff builds up, and people find themselves going to therapists for things that they could have really just avoided with a bit of mental, emotional hygiene. So negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative feelings, they build up when you don't observe them. But when you do observe them, they start to dissolve. But if you're in a very immature kind of spiritual and emotional state, you will think that observing them is the worst thing possible. You know the saying, in filth it will be found. What that really means is you've got to get through the unpleasantness in order to get to where you're trying to be. So you're trying to be in a state of inner peace, but when you've tried meditating or being mindful, all that nasty stuff has come up, and then you instantly run away because you think meditation and mindfulness isn't for you, or you think it just makes you feel worse. All that is just the initial dirt coming up. It doesn't mean that there's going to be dirt forever. If you drill a pipe into the ground for drinking water, the first stuff that comes out is going to be horrible. It's not going to be stuff that you can drink, but you've got to get past it. You've got to stick with it and get past it, and that's what a lot of people don't do. But it does dissolve. The negative emotion does dissolve. So let's just say you've got a negative emotion in you right now. Like if you searched this video up, you probably have got something unpleasant inside you. And there's the emotion, and then there's the story connected to the emotion. So there was an event maybe that triggered the emotion, and now there's an emotion inside of you. The event, of course, is long gone. It's in the past. It's not happening to you now. What's happening to you now is that you are staring at the screen, watching YouTube, listening to me. So the event is gone, and yet the emotional energy is still there. It's still there, and it's still making you feel bad. So what happens is the negative emotion tells your brain about the story, and then you start recapping the story in your mind. And then that causes more negative emotion in your heart. And then the negative feelings trigger more mental activity. And then your head and your heart start behaving like two very disruptive children. So imagine you're a teacher and there's two children that if you let them sit together, they cause all kinds of trouble. So that is what's going on inside you right now. So the negative emotions are triggering the brain to think more negative thoughts and then recap the story, and then that causes more negative emotions, and so on and so on. So what you've got to do is take those two unruly children and put them at opposite ends of the classroom. So don't allow the mind to create any more negative emotion, and don't allow the emotion to start creating more negative thoughts. Separate them. So what you can do is you can sit in silence and then observe, just literally look at the emotion where it is in your body, and then just stare at it. Literally just stare at it, and you'll find that it's not really a negative emotion connected to that event or that story, because you can actually just unwrap the story and throw the story away. Forget about it. The story is in the past. And now all that's left is this just glowing ball of moderately unpleasant energy inside you. And it doesn't have a story anymore. The moment it doesn't have a story anymore, you've taken its shell away. And once it's lost its shell, it will start to dissolve. Because now it's just generic negative energy inside of you. And honestly, the more you watch it, the more it will dissolve. So there's that. Then there is, of course, religious practices which will help so much more than just what I've told you. But you may not be part of a religious tradition, which makes this tricky. Generally, shutting everything out and talking to God will boost the process of dissolving the negative energy way, way, way quicker than just trying to be an atheist about it. And then if we go a bit further, so I'm a Muslim, so I know about the Islamic practices. So the 5 daily prayers, my God, they are so effective at cleaning out negative energy from inside of you. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that these 5 daily prayers are like you immersing yourself in a stream 5 times a day. Just think what that does inside of you. Just think how much that cleans your insides out. It's like a shower, but for your insides. So how you feel when you've had a good shower or a nice long bath and you come out of it feeling all sparkly and clean on the surface, your skin is all clean and wonderful. Wouldn't it be great if you could feel that on the inside? And you can, but you do need to do these proper practices on a regular basis. Otherwise, the negativity will just build up. The negativity will just build up, and before you know it, some other event has happened, and that event has triggered what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body, which is this intense kind of negative feeling inside of you, and it seems so persistent that you can't get rid of it. The pain body is the result of lots and lots of small amounts of negativity building up over time because you weren't consciously dissolving it and cleaning it away. It's like somebody who never bathes or never showers. Eventually they're gonna smell. They're gonna smell, and people will be able to smell it from a distance. The same is true for spiritual hygiene. So people who don't clean out their insides on a regular basis will develop a kind of spiritual unpleasant aura from a distance that people just will not like. And you might find yourself kind of carrying this bubble of negative energy where you're in public and you're perfectly polite to everybody and you haven't done anything or said anything unpleasant, and yet people react badly to you. It's because you're carrying that smell, that spiritual smell, because you're not cleaning out your insides. So that's another thing that's very important for inner peace. Journaling, I've got in my notes, that's another good one. Get it out of your mind and onto a page. It can be a physical page, it can be a Word document, it can be whatever you want. Just get it out of your mind. I remember, so I have an app where I just kind of do a brain dump whenever I've got a bunch of things that are bothering me. And it can get crazy. Like sometimes I'll have like 15 or 20 in the bullet point list. Once you've written them out, you lose the emotional kind of attachment to them and you start looking at them objectively, and you go through them and you say, oh, okay, individually these aren't that bad. Maybe I was just feeling bad because there were just so many of them at the same time and I just got overwhelmed. So it could be that. Another thing you can do is just dump everything out into a list, and then weeks or months later, when these things aren't an issue anymore, you can go back and review the list. And then you can add some annotations where you can say, oh, this one fixed itself. This one I was worrying about nothing. This one, it did happen, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, that kind of thing. So this will make you realize all of that worry was unnecessary. Like, what problem are you going to solve by worrying or by feeling guilty about the past? So if you've done things wrong in the past, the only way you can fix that is by repenting in the present moment and seeking forgiveness from God. You can't travel in time, okay? Time travel has not been invented and may never be invented. So you can't travel back in time and fix problems that way. The only way you can fix, well, look at it this way, there is actually nothing wrong in the outside world. If there's something, if you've got a bad emotion about the past, the only thing that's remaining that is a problem is the negative energy inside of you, and that you fix by repenting and then seeking forgiveness from God, and now that's gone as well. Well, then once that's gone, everything's gone. So don't let yourself keep digging it up again and again and again. So forgiveness, if you want to be forgiven, you've got to forgive everybody and everything and everyone, and you've got to do it often, and you've got to do it quickly. If you find that there's a small amount of negativity inside you related to a particular person, maybe what they did or didn't do, just consciously say to your mind, you know what, I need to forgive that person. Just say, I forgive you in your mind, and then move on, forget about it, it will be gone. Another thing I have to mention before I forget is a lot of negative emotions and negative thoughts are whispered into your mind by the devil, by Satan. You need to identify those thoughts at the earliest possible opportunity, as soon as they come in, which is the best time to do it. And then throw it away as soon as it comes in. Throw it away like a piece of junk mail that has come through your letterbox. Just look at it and say, you know what, that's not my thought, I didn't think that, and I don't need this thought, it doesn't serve me. Throw it into the recycle bin and move on. That way it does the least amount of damage. If you're not monitoring your thoughts in order to filter out the junk mail, in order to filter out the satanic whispers, if you're not doing that, then before you know it, that thought has triggered an emotion. And now all of a sudden you're feeling bad for no good reason at all. And another one, if you're a woman and you feel bad for no reason at all, you will do what most women do, which is you'll start blaming your husband. For some reason, women's husbands are to blame for everything under the sun, including negative emotions that got lodged there because they themselves weren't monitoring the whispers. No, take responsibility for these, all right? Because it's inside you, so you need to take responsibility for these thoughts and these emotions that are swirling around inside of you. But another thing I have to say is, for women particularly, but this is also true for everybody generally, is some emotions are just irrational. Like sometimes you're just going to have a negative emotion for no good reason. these kind of negative emotions for no good reason tend to happen when you're out and about, especially if you live in a big city, because you know what I said earlier about carrying the negative bubble. If you get on the bus, you're going to experience other people's negative bubbles because most people are not practicing spiritual hygiene. So, and then you get off the bus and you're just carrying all of this horrible, horrible kind of negative emotional energy. And then you start thinking, why am I feeling bad? Now, if you try to be logical about it, what you're going to say is, well, there must be a good reason I'm feeling bad. Maybe there's something in my life. Maybe something's happening. Maybe somebody is plotting something against me. Whoa, slow down, okay? Nothing like that. You just absorbed a little bit of negative emotion from somebody else because you were sitting next to all of these people on the bus. You could be walking down the street where a couple are having an awful row, and even if you can't hear them consciously, you might, like, your brain might be picking up on tiny kind of micro noises, or maybe there's no rational way of knowing, but maybe the energy just comes through, and then all of a sudden you feel bad, right? Monitor these and just get rid of them, nip them in the bud as soon as they kind of come into you. What else have we got? Creative expression, continuous learning. I wonder why it said that. I've got a set of notes that I asked Claude to generate, so these are a bit hit and miss. Ooh, environment, maintaining an organized space. Yes, perfect. If you allow your physical surroundings to become chaotic and messy, then that is what you are also allowing on the inside. So, as without, so within. Tidy up your physical space. It's not rocket science. When your room and your house is clean and tidy, your insides will be clean and tidy. When your room and your house is messy and chaotic, your insides will be chaotic and messy. Minimalism. Get things right down to a minimum so that you are not drowning in stuff. You don't need all these possessions. Get rid of them. Give them away to people. The less stuff you have, the happier you will be. That's not what this culture says. The culture says the more stuff you have, the happier you will be. That's because we live in a culture that is quantitative rather than qualitative. Focus on quality rather than quantity, and you don't need a lot of things in order to be happy. In fact, the less stuff you have, the happier you will be. Decluttering, yes, so all of that. Exposure to natural light. Okay, so yeah, get out and about. I know some of you are going to say, well, my job means I have to stay in an office all day. Are you a slave, or are you a free human being? Right? Do you have to sit in an office all day? Is that really the only way you can make money? Well, if you think like that, then you are setting up a cascade of negative events, negative emotions, and it's going to be a feedback loop, because if you don't get enough exercise, if you don't get enough natural light and fresh air, then of course you're going to be miserable. What good is it having a job, having an income, if you're miserable on the inside? Like, what is the point of that? Imagine somebody who lives in surroundings that are perfectly clean, but their own clothes for some reason are kind of soaked in manure, and that person smells wherever they go. That is the person who prioritizes their external wealth over their internal wealth. Inner peace is the best internal wealth somebody can have. So if you sacrifice your inner peace for your career, your job, status, all of these things, then you're going to be like somebody who lives in a house made of gold while their own body is covered in manure. Like, everybody will be able to smell it. Everybody will be able to smell it. You will be a disgusting creature wherever you go. Nobody will want to be around you. So don't sacrifice your inner peace for external material wealth. It's absurd. It's illogical. Why would anybody do that? It's far better to be poor on the outside while having perfect inner peace, which is what happened to Eckhart Tolle after he had his spiritual awakening. For decades, he just I think he had jobs here and there, but he didn't really prioritize them. So he found himself kind of, homeless or sitting on park benches all day and stuff like that. But he didn't care because he had inner peace. And if you're going to prioritize one thing, it makes sense to prioritize inner peace over everything else. I think sacrificing inner peace is like sacrificing hygiene. Somebody who doesn't work on their inner peace is like somebody who doesn't brush their teeth. It's that bad. It really is that bad. What else have we got? Emotional balance, practicing acceptance. Yeah, I could talk for this one a long time. I think I'm going to wrap it up because I don't want this video to be too long. I'll do loads more if people are interested. Practicing acceptance, so accepting the present moment as if you had chosen it, because the present moment is the way it is because it's the will of God. Islam means submission. It means you submit to God. It means you submit to the will of God. It means you submit to the way the present moment is. Now, I know people are going to say, oh, doesn't that mean you're just going to sit there and not do anything? No, because the present moment also contains obligations. When it is time to pray, if you are submitting to the present moment, then you will get up and pray, because that's what submission means, submitting to the present moment. So acceptance means doing what needs to be done and not doing what doesn't need to be done and what cannot be done. So focusing on what you can do and not worrying about what you can't do. Things like watching the news, it fills you with emotions about things you can do nothing about, and then that boosts your ego, and then before you know it, you're complaining about this, saying, oh look, all these idiots here and all these idiots here. Well, you may not realize it, but those things have consequences on your own inner peace. A few hours later, you might find it hard to sleep because you were watching the news and getting all worked up about it. Everything has consequences. So monitor. Small amounts of negativity will build up and snowball into big amounts of negativity. So if you're currently in a situation where there's nothing major going on, but you do have small amounts of negativity, that's perfect. You can dissolve those small amounts of negativity, stop them building up into something big. Then you'll be very well placed to cope with life's ordeals and challenges, and even something big won't hurt you as much because you don't have that much residual negativity stored up. If you do have a lot of residual negativity stored up and you've been repressing it, and then one negative event, then boom, that will explode. But if you've cleaned out all of your negativity, you'll still feel bad when bad things happen. You'll feel sad when, the inevitable happens here and there, because it's all part of life. But you'll find that you can cope with it a lot better.